The other evening, we saw a couple breaking in when we were about to start our evening sessions. You would remember, found it rather odd. And then when I looked at them, they blandly asked us whether they could join our group. There was no alternative except to say, all right. And they sat there. So I thought it was courtesy that I should meet them before they leave. I found out there were two innocents from United States in search of something they did not know what, and they were drifting. The gentleman was more frank. He said he wanted to meditate, and he has been going round wanting to know how to do it. I asked, he said, can you tell me? But I said, what do you do? He said, I close my eyes and sit. But that's not meditation. Meditation is on something. He looked blank. Then I told him, to sit with your eyes closed may be relaxation. But meditation presupposes a theme. You should have something on which your attention is centered. Not that it should be fixed. It should work upon it. It should watch a theme unrolling itself. Or you should apply your mind to work out something. But the mind is busy. He seemed to understand a bit. And the first topic for our discussion today, I find, is connected with that subject. When we meditate, before we meditate, we should know for what purpose we meditate. We meditate for peace, for knowledge, for realizing the divine. For what purpose? An inner life, a spiritual life, has got to have some object, some aim before it. Even in ordinary material life, there are aims, short-range objectives, long-range objectives. It is much more important that we should set for ourselves a goal, an immediate goal, to begin with. So meditation, let us say, is intended by us to habituate our consciousness to be receptive to the deeper or the higher vibrations of spiritual consciousness, of spiritual reality. For that purpose, we withdraw our dispersed mental energies. Patanjali, the ancient systematizer of yoga, calls it pratyahara, withdrawal, and focus them, bring them into as narrow an area as possible, and focus them on something. You can't focus it on a blank, on a vacancy. And on what we are going to focus our gathered mental energies, concentrated mind, depends upon what we seek. Also, it depends upon our past evolution, the state of our development, what kind of nature we have. Some will have an image, not necessarily one image, maybe a series of images. The mind will project images, and this capacity of mental projection of images testifies to an active physical mind. So those of us who have an active physical mind are apt to see a flitting of images, not always chosen by us consciously, but number of images that have passed before, number of images which our imagination builds, and the mind goes on looking at them. Even to keep the mind fixed on these images is an exercise. Normally, after seeing the images for a while, the mind wanders. You have to get it back. That is one. Keeping our mind, the attention of the mind to the images that are formed on our mental screen. Those who take to spiritual life, for instance, they would exercise their will to see that the images are of some forms of inspiration, forms of beauty. Say, for instance, a flower, a beautiful sunrise, a beautiful scenery, or a figure like that of Mother or Sri Aurobindo, which has infinite meaning for us, which is a source of deep inspiration for us, which is a channel or a gate to a larger consciousness for us. We keep that before us, a form, and try to look at it. And as we look at it, what is behind the form, that yields itself. You look at the figure of infant Krishna. God in the form of delight, in the form of joy. You concentrate upon it, maybe as you have seen in pictures, maybe as you have visualized after reading what has been written about him by poets and seers. And as you concentrate, as you look, the delight, waves of delight, even perhaps the vibrations of his flute you may hear. There is a movement of felicity. This may or may not happen in all cases, but I just illustrate that meditation on a form, when it is properly done, necessarily leads to communion with what is behind form. For some whose physical mind is not so active, but whose thought mind is active, who are more used to thinking, they will have idea of the divine as love, the divine as knowledge, the divine as power, of beauty as beauty, whichever, in whatever aspect you seek to realize the divine. Those ideas you have to encourage, those ideas will fall. That is what Mother means by saying you work out a theme, the divine as beauty. Thoughts concerning the manifestation of God in the form of beauty. Beauty of form, beauty of feeling, beauty of thought, beauty of existence. Then there are others who are not strong either in images or in ideas. They find it easier and more natural to experience feelings, sensations. The moment they close their eyes for meditation, they will feel a crest of devotion, their consciousness rising on a crest of devotion, a spreading of love, love for God, love for all. There may be a sensation of joy, a quiet joy, an ebullition in the chest, a sense of peace, in whatever way, that feeling and that sensation. The meditation proceeds upon that. These are illustrative movements of the themes that get chosen for meditation. For those who have imagination, the imaginative faculty in a developed manner, Mother recommends that the force of imagination be put to a capital use during meditations. She says, as you think of plunging into yourself, as you are aware, one can always expand upwards, expand outwards, plunge inwards. Plunging inwards is easier for most. Let us take a person who finds it more natural to plunge in himself. Now this plunging can be best done with the aid of imagination. Imagine you are going down a series of steps. The breath is your rope. Hang on to it and go down step by step. After a while, you will actually feel the transitions from one step to another. The power of imagination builds the stairs, and you find yourself slowly going down the steps. One step leads to another. Then what you may have read, what you may have heard, that comes in service, and at the series of steps, you imagine a door. You concentrate, you aspire, the door opens. You enter into a chamber, there is another door, and so on. When mystics describe these experiences, it is not just poetry. They answer to certain facts in the subliminal world which are commonly confronted by the inward seekers. Imagination, when it summons these images, helps the consciousness to center itself and go down step by step. You would say this is form, you concentrated on form. But form is natural to the mental world, either thought or form. Thought disturbs, but form can help. It is not. Imaginative figures, experiences on the wings of imagination, they are not of the physical type. There is, even as you go, there is the force of suggestion. The will forms certain images, uses those images to effectuate itself. Imagination can play, Mother observes incidentally, a large part in building up ourselves, organizing our lives. She illustrates with an example of a person whom she knew, how he was balding, his hair was falling off, and as is usual, persons who are balding, they are very alarmed, and that very alarm and nervousness, it expedites the process. So someone met him and told him, don't go on thinking that you are going to lose your hair and become completely bald one day. Each time you look at your head in the mirror, make a suggestion, an auto-suggestion to yourself that your hair is growing. Obviously, the person who said it had some power in speech, and this person also had faith. So he started saying to himself every day, my hair are growing each time. And very shortly they did start growing, and he never became completely bald. This is a story from life, and there are whole books written on the power of suggestion, on the power of imagination. Of course, it can't be the whole truth, but there is something in that theory, and it can be utilized in a capital way by those who want to culture their consciousness and develop their will. Someone asks, what about meditating upon a sentence? Because Mother used to read out passages from Sri Aurobindo or Dhammapada and then conclude with a sentence and telling the children, this is a good theme of meditation. She gave a sentence. So the question came, how to meditate on a sentence? She said, there are two ways of concentration on a sentence. First is, you dwell upon the words that constitute that sentence. Words, one by one, their sequence. There is another way, and that is the thought behind the words. What is the purport of the sentence? What is the idea that clothes itself in those words? You concentrate upon that. These are the normal ways. But there is also a third way, and that is you concentrate upon the idea behind the thought. Because as you know, ideas are not thoughts. An idea can clothe itself in different ways of thoughts, even as a single thought can express itself in different words. So some can take a sentence and concentrate upon the words, some on the thoughts, some on the idea, and a few, though it is very rare, they concentrate on the force, on the principle behind the idea, the ultimate, the spiritual principle, and the idea itself. In asking you to concentrate upon a sentence is to gradually lead you to contact the principle, the truth of the force of truth behind the whole sequence of thoughts. It is also possible to concentrate upon an object, some object, not necessarily mental, it can be physical. In certain lines of concentration, they choose a candle, they choose a flower, they choose a flame. It may be physical or it may be imagined. But these are all devices to hold the attention. Once one gets ready at that crude level, then one no longer needs to concentrate upon physical objects or their mental counterparts, but to go to the realm of thoughts and ideas. The question of imagination comes up again, and for a spiritual seeker, or for that matter for one who wants to develop his consciousness, what use can imagination have? Imagination has to be disciplined. Otherwise, like most human faculties, imagination also goes wild. It can lead astray. It can lead to the creation of a subjective world in which one is shut, cutting off all connection with objective reality. Imagination has to be disciplined. It has to be given form. There should be a kind of discrimination in the background, where we step into the realm of fantasy, and up to where we can rove in the range of possibilities. It may not be possible today, but it may be possible tomorrow. So there is a clear demarcating line between fantasy and possibility. All these, however, belong to the mental domain. Those who want, or those who are intended, gifted to create something new, they go beyond the mental domain. They find themselves in a realm which is higher, above the realm of thoughts. There new truths are germinating. And imagination is a very useful faculty in participating in that movement of new creation. Before they take physical form, they are in the realm of ideas, images, picturizations. And there, a reasoning mind, if you start analyzing and saying this is not that, it will not do. There is a realm, there is a level up to which reasoning can be had given full play. After that, there is a domain where imagination has its full play and rightful play. It is in that realm that many of the discoveries, for instance, of aeroplanes, of steam engines, these have had their source. So imagination creates certain forms, gives scope to certain possibilities to actualize themselves in a subtle way before they are precipitated into the physical domain. Above the mind, above the normal working mind, there is what Mother calls a subtle mind, where there is a constant war of thoughts and imaginations. Luckily, she says, we do not see this clash of thoughts, of imaginations. My thoughts will clash with your thoughts. His imaginations will clash with another's imaginations. And there is, as a result of this clash, many are self-cancelled, negative, and only certain powerful thoughts and imaginations have wings, develop wings, and go on to work out whatever possibilities are inherent in them. Apart from that, what is more interesting is, in each person, a thought of one moment contradicts a thought, say, an hour ago. So there is no harmony in our own thoughts, the thoughts of an individual, just as the desires of a person conflict and the words of a person are not always consistent. Much more so, there is no consistency in thoughts, in imaginations. They go on contradicting each other, neutralizing each other. And that is why a good part of our imaginative output comes to nothing. There has to be a disciplining of the mind, even before one enters spiritual life, to become a full mental being, a disciplining of the mind, a cultivation of the faculty of imagination, subject to certain wholesome rules of discrimination, observation, scrutiny, and an organization of a thought pattern which is not crisscrossed by contradictions, conflicts, which ultimately come to nothing. These have to be cultivated, just as for the development of the physical body. We follow a system of physical exercises in such a way that one movement does not neutralize the other. But a course is so organized that all the parts of the body receive training and are cultivated. The next topic is of occultism. The question was, what is black magic and what is white magic? Before coming to that question, what is magic? Magic is purely a mechanical process. Mother points out that what chemical formulas like H2O and others, mixing of certain atoms in a particular proportion, leading to certain definite results. What that process is in physical science, magic is in occultism. There are set formulas, set words, set processes, which whoever does them, they yield particular results. One doesn't need to be spiritual. One doesn't need to be an intellectual. All that one needs to know is those formulae, those processes. And if one succeeds in doing them, those results are sure to follow. That is magic. And it belongs to a very primitive and primary level of occultism. But true occultism, Mother points out, needs a certain inner gift. It is not a question of mugging up certain formulas and practicing them. One needs to be born with that facility, with that gift of being able to handle the subtler forces which are not patent to the eye. Or one must have developed that insight, that capacity, either by self-training or by learning from an adept. And a person who does this in the yogic way, he acquires certain spiritual and special powers. And this spiritual power that is acquired in occult science, all need not. Now, what is occultism? Occultism is the science of knowing the play of forces in nature which are not patent to the outer eye. Knowing and then acquiring the capacity to manipulate these forces in nature to yield the results that you want. When this knowledge and practice is used for the benefit of mankind, for the benefit of people, they say it is white magic. When it is used for furtherance of your own interests and for damaging those of others, for doing harm to others, that is called black magic. But this capacity of inflicting damage, harming others, cannot succeed in the presence of one who has truly a spiritual power. Magic, even ordinary magic, fails before a spiritual person. That is why Mother humorously points out that, especially in India, magicians don't show themselves before sages and saints and spiritually advanced people. We had a signal instance some years ago in the ashram when Mother used to go to the playground. It was before 1958. One magician came and he had number of things to show, and as usual all our children and the whole ashram people gathered. Mother was sitting. Then in his own, to safeguard, I don't recollect exactly, if I am wrong, Vasanti should correct me because it goes on record. Because I was not present. She must have been present as a group member. I think Mother said to that person, or sent word to that person, that he had better tell her what he is going to do. Now, no magician will tell you his trick, his secret. So he indignantly said, no, I won't say, I will show. If I am a cheat, you show me. Then mother said, all right. But he had such a great name everywhere. And when mother said, all right, she sat there. And he started showing. At the very second trick or so, some of our children found out that it was fake. And the man was so much embarrassed that he hastily packed his bags and left in shame. Mother explained afterwards that these things do not work in the presence of a higher consciousness. But if he had told her as she asked him to do, she would have allowed it to go on for the amusement of children. She was not interested in knowing how he did it. She wanted to help him to give a successful performance. Such cases are very common. One man came for pranam upstairs after this 1958, after that, and he wanted to show magic. He was in a group. Mother said, but if he wants to see me his magic, he must tell me. So that gentleman luckily was a bit of an educated man. And first, all of them stood outside. He went inside and told mother. What he told we do not know. Obviously he told his tricks. Then she smiled, and then all people were loud. Then he took out from his pocket, did this and all that, and everybody duly appreciated. Mother also smiled, blessed him. And then she said, he is an extremely clever man. This they may allow, but before them these tricks will not succeed. Now even in black magic, what happens? She describes, and she has repeated so often, that the force you release to harm, if that person whom you want to harm is a spiritual person, he has an automatic circle of protection of God or of his Guru. So it strikes him, and when it strikes, it can't get in, because always spiritual power is stronger than occult power. So there is a law of action and reaction. The ball comes back, and where will it go back? It will hit the person from whom it has gone. So this invariably happens if the person is developed. Supposing he is a person who is not developed, if he is devoted, if that person enjoys the protection of his Guru, say of mother, anybody here, if those of us who have trust in mother, we have devotion and faith, we are all protected by certain walls of protection, unless we choose to escape those walls by our actions. So even we, who cannot claim to erect walls around ourselves, but who have walls put around us by mother, when those forces strike, they will go back. This is what she has said. But there is another thing which she has said elsewhere. I might mention it since it is relevant. It may happen that we are 2 or 3 people. I have protection. The person around near me, he may not have protection. He may be somebody else. Now, that occultist who releases that force, if he is an adept, if he is clever, he puts a will so that if it doesn't strike the objective, it strikes the next person. If that person also is protected, it will naturally go back. Otherwise, it will strike the person who is weak, who is unprotected. The objective may not be harmed, but the person who is with him. A person is sick. Somebody wants to harm him. The person who is around that person, he will be hit. But whatever it is, the technique is that, but it cannot succeed against people who are spiritually protected or who have a spiritual aspiration. That is called black magic. I think we'll stop that 11:15. Proceed further next time. Any questions?
You talked about different processes in meditation, but yet the slow stage, mind is conditioned. So meditation comes, we can't meditate. Mind is limited, and by trial we can't do because that is unknown, and mind is more conditioned, fixed with many. So in all these processes, the person is active. So it says it must come.
He has a certain experience which one meets at the frontier of the thought mind, and he constitutes that as the totality of possible experience. His whole philosophy is erected on that limited experience. It is not that the mind is always conditioned. It is only the habitual mind that is conditioned. But the habitual mind is only a part of our mind. Sri Aurobindo has distinguished different layers of mind. The thought mind, the physical mind, the mechanical mind, the desire mind, the thinking mind, the idea mind, and so on. So we start at the level where we are. We have to discipline. All right, we may be determined. When we say that we choose the method of meditation through images, meditation through ideas, meditation through sound, these are all concessions to the conditioning to which we are subject. Each person is conditioned differently by his environment, by his nature. But that is not a permanent condition. Evolution is a developing process. My condition, my state, which is conditioned today in a particular way, will not be the same tomorrow. So one person is developing. What was true yesterday is not true today. So even if I choose to compromise and accept a way to which my conditioned nature points as the most natural to me, that is only the first step. It is possible by a little effort to go beyond the past condition. One may be conditioned, one is not determined entirely. I was reading yesterday a book by one Jay Tilaka for purposes of review on the message of the Buddhism. There, in an excellent analysis, he points out, discussing the question of determinism and free will, that the environment may condition, but it does not determine. There is a reality greater than the mind. The soul can't be conditioned. It is the mind, the external mind, the surface mind, the habitual mind that is conditioned. Once you are aware of that and you step behind, the larger mind, the deeper mind, the higher mind comes into the picture and sets aside all conditionings. It is a very limited view based upon a limited experience to say that we are conditioned. Conditioned on the surface, yes. But inside it is a growing dynamism with which we can easily outgrow our conditionings. After all, the mind, which is reputed to be so conditioned, is only a fragment of the consciousness. My mind can be completely silenced, put in a vacancy, along with its conditioning. What do you say to that? The consciousness opens. It opens to peace, but that is not the final thing. It can open to light, it can open to joy, it can open to knowledge, but these are all realms which it does not admit. It satisfies a certain kind of mental philistinism to hear these talks. They break the faith, they undermine confidence and live on mid-air. One has to have a total view, a larger view, recognizing that the mind which is conditioned by circumstances, by the past karma and all these, after all it occupies only a part, a fragment of our personality.